Bonjour et bienvenue dans ce nouvel épisode du Pas de Girls. Oops, sorry. Wrong language, my bad. Plus, I wouldn't want to subject you guys to my rather strong Southern French accent if I get excited. Anyway, as you might have guessed, today we're going to talk about something, or rather someone that speaks French. French Canadian to be specific. Then we are going to explore the life and legacy of Gilles Villeneuve. On the mics tonight, it is Melissa and myself, Edo, with Chelsea behind the scenes. But let's have Melissa give us some background.
Complete transparency before we start. I apologize in advance for any mispronunciation. Your girl tried and looked it up too and asked the girls, so apologies. Anyways, Joseph Gilles Henry Villeneuve was born on January 18th, 1950 in Quebec, Canada. And in 1970, he married Joanne Barth and had two children together, Jack and Melanie. To be honest, there wasn't really much besides that in his parents, so I kind of give him credit for the private life because you know how nowadays it's pretty hard to keep your life in private, whether you're super, super famous or not. However, in the earlier parts of his career, I found this fun fact about him. He would take his family on the road with him in a motorhome to different races throughout the season. This later went into play as he entered the F1 world, and I thought that was actually pretty cool how it's like a whole family affair that they would travel to different races, kind of like a little mandatory family bonding, if you will. And another fun fact was that Jill is often claimed has often claimed that he was born in 1952 instead of 1950. This is due to the fact that by the time he entered F1, he was already 27 years old and took off 2 years off his age as he wanted to avoid being considered too old to be successful at this point in his career. Which, I mean, 27 is really not that old, but that's neither that nor here. But let's get into how he got started in the motorsport and how it went on. Gilles Villeneuve started his journey in the motorsport world by driving in the local drag racing events. There he drove his modified 1967 Ford Mustang. However, he got bored of this and entered the Jim Russell Racing School at Circuit Mont Tremblant to obtain his racing license. And this whole getting bored of like being in a certain like series or like certain like racing events kind of like funny because I don't know how you could ever get bored of it. But who am I to judge that? He had a successful season at Quebec Regional Formula Ford using his 2-year-old car, where he won 7 out of the 10 races he took part in. And the following year, he moved on to Formula Atlantic, where he would participate for the following 4 seasons. He won his first Atlantic race in 1975 at the Rainy Gimli Motorsport Park. And into 1976, he teamed up with Chris Harrison's Écurie Canada and Factory March race engineer Ray Wardell. It was a dominant season to say the least, as he won all races except for one, taking the US and Canadian titles. And in the following year, in 1977, he won the Canadian Championship. Like for some drivers, money was an area of concern for Gilles in the early stages of his career. And since he was a professional racer from his late teenage years, he earned income in his earlier years from snowmobile racing. He won the 1974 World Championship Snowmobile Derby, and in his second season in Formula Atlantic, he was part sponsored by his snowmobile manufacturer. I'm not going to even pronounce it, but it starts with an S, and I'll leave it at that. I think it's kind of cool knowing that he did this on the side, and I feel like it'd be kind of cool to like watch that in general, but I don't know about the weather part as a spectator because your girl does not like the cold. Now that we dove into Jill's start in the motorsport world, let's get into his start into Formula One.
Honestly, Gilles is one of my, dare I say, like old school F1 favorite old school F1 characters. And so I always love to also read about and also listen to other people talk about his non F1 exploits because they definitely helped him get into F1 because he truly began his F1 journey with an impressive performance at the 76 Formula Atlantic races, as Mel mentioned, where he defeated none other than James Hunt, who was the 1976 reigning world champion in F1. And he also beat out other stars in that race, not just James. Of course, this caught Hunt's attention and also his team's, McLaren's, leading to an offer from the team for up to 5 races in 1977. So, if you don't know, it was very normal in the early days of F1 to like hire drivers for a few races to like test them out before giving them like a full season contract, whereas these days that's not really done anymore. It's, dare I say, similar to say what IndyCar and NASCAR do these days still. But anyway, that contract led Gilles to debut at the British GP, where he qualified ninth in an older McLaren and finished 11th despite a setback. The British press praised him, and you know the British press, they oftentimes don't praise a non-Brit. So it was very impressive. And they even started predicting a future world championship for him. And after one race, that's insane. However, with all those accolades by the press and by everyone else, it didn't mean that he got a full-time McLaren contract. But rather, team manager Teddy Mayer decided not to continue with Villeneuve, citing cost concerns. And despite limited options for the next season, 78, Villeneuve's fortune changed when Ferrari's Enzo Ferrari saw potential in him, leading to a contract for the final 2 races of 77 with the Scuderia, as well as a full season contract for 78. And honestly, Villeneuve fulfilled his dream, stating his 3 wishes would be to race, join F1, and drive for Ferrari. And he did that pretty much all in one foul swoop. Talk about lucky. And skill, obviously. So, Villeneuve's Ferrari debut came after Niki Lauda, who we'll talk about in a later episode, left the team. And though his initial races had mixed results, he earned his first Grand Prix win at the Canadian GP that year. Talk about an explosive start, because home race victory. The following year, he engaged in a memorable duel with René Arnoux at the French GP, showcasing his tenacity, and Villeneuve actually nearly won the 79 championship, but chose to support his teammate Jody Scheckter instead, and finished second overall. Just makes me love him more. Who doesn't love a team player in Formula 1, honestly? Then, 80 rolled around. 80 was tough for Ferrari, honestly. But thankfully, after one season of struggle, in 81, Villeneuve won 2 races despite handling issues with the new turbocharged Ferrari. His determination was evident at the Spanish GP, where he held off 5 faster cars, as well as in Canada, where he drove with a damaged car in heavy rain to finish 3rd. All this actually brought him in some good offers for 82, especially one from McLaren. But he was so dedicated to Ferrari that he stayed optimistic about the prospects and decided to stay. The 82 season began with promise, but also controversy. At the San Marino GP, Villeneuve believed teammate Didier Pironi at the time broke a team order, leading to a bitter fallout between the two. Of course, Villeneuve felt betrayed and vowed to never speak to Pironi again. Despite differing views on the incident, Villeneuve's raw talent and competitive spirit remained unquestioned.
Now, on May 8th, 1982, unfortunately, Gilles passed away after an accident during the final quali session at the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder. Wish we can talk about more of his achievements in F1 because I bet he could have had a hell of a lot more, but tis is life. Now, it is speculated that Gilles was using his final set of tires for the session in an attempt to improve his time, while others speculate that he was aiming to outpace Pironi, who was fighting for P6 in the starting grid. However, according to Gilles' autobiography, his race engineer explained that he was heading to the pit lane when the accident took place, so regardless, no time would have been set for the driver. Now, when I was reading about the accident, it was actually pretty gruesome, and I had to reread some parts because I was just like, whoa, 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 and what happened afterwards. But the accident was concluded by the safety inspector, who stated that it was an error done by Gilles himself that caused him to hit the back of Mass's car and acquitted any other fault to the accident. Essentially, after Gilles' car hit Mass's car, Gilles in his car went into the air about 330 feet high at speeds of about 120 to 140 miles per hour. Super high at super high speeds. And it hit the ground and broke apart while some of the car had somersaulted alongside of the track. Now, I can just imagine how scary this is as a spectator, seeing this all live, and possibly seeing some car parts going your way. Super scary. Unfortunately, his helmet had fallen off, causing the injury to his body, and he was found with the pulse. However, he was not breathing by the medical care that quickly went onto the track. Gilles was put on life support while his wife had traveled to the hospital to, of course, talk to the staff on care and everything, and he suffered a fatal fracture to the neck. Again, so glad for the safety measures that are taken into place and everything, because I didn't give you guys all the details of how the drivers had to help him out and everything. Again, it was a lot, and it's super scary. However, let's talk about his legacy. Now, he completed in a total of 67 races, winning 6 of them and earning 13 podium finishes. Now he's remembered by his former teammate Jody Scheckter, where in his eulogy he stated, "I will miss Gilles for 2 reasons. First, he was the most genuine man I've ever known. Second, he was the fastest driver in the history of motor racing, but he has not gone. The memory of what he has done, what he achieved, will always be remembered." I love that he was just he's just super fast, because all the drivers realistically are just super fast. And in 1982, the racetrack on Notre Dame Island in Montreal was named Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in his honor. There's also a sign that says Salut Gilles painted on the start-finish line, which I love. It's super cute. And he was inducted into Canada Sports Hall of Fame in 1983. And about 10 years later, he was inducted into the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame at their inaugural ceremony in 1993. In June of 1997, Canada also released a special postage stamp in his honor. So I loved how he was always inducted into these little things and a postage stamp. So whoever collects them, y'all got money on that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love about him because, he never won a world title. He only won a few races and everything, yet he is this, almost poster boy for Canadian racing with all these honors and everything else. I mean, which driver can boast that they have a circuit named after them and that they have all these other honors as well? It's amazing. And it doesn't stop there either, because let's talk about Gilles Villeneuve in pop culture. So, we have basically 2 areas to talk about. On one hand, there was supposed to be a film made based on Gerald Donaldson's biography of Gilles Villeneuve, and that was announced in 2005 with Christian Duguay as the director, but it has yet to materialize, sadly. However, another film directed by Daniel Robbie entered production last year. So hopefully we'll see that one soon. If not the other one too. I mean, a girl can remain hopeful. However, that's not the only time he appeared in pop culture, because there is this French comic series by Jean Gratteau called Michel Vaillant, where he's depicted as the 1980 world champion in one story. Note, that never happened, actually. And then, of course, we have the Quebecois rock band The Box, who wrote Live on TV in 1984, inspired by Villeneuve's televised death. Yeah. Again, while I listen to the song, and while it's a good song, it's sad. Like, I wish it didn't exist. And then we have in 2017, Italian rock band The Rock Alchemist paid tribute to him as well with their song 27 on the album Elements, referring to his iconic Ferrari with the number 27. And actually, if you think about his death as well, and the fact that his helmet flew off, it's actually very interesting to talk about his helmets, because we do have to talk about them. So, they often featured a dark blue base with an orange styled V, for Villeneuve obviously, on each side. A design he created with his wife, Joan. His son, Jacques, who also entered Formula One and actually became world champion in the 90s, used that old helmet design and his boots as well, especially at the beginning of his racing career. So again, cute tribute. And he wasn't the only one that adopted that style of helmet design, because the British driver Perry McCarthy also adopted that helmet design, but in a reverse color scheme. So it again goes to show how impactful his career, even if it's not like a historic career, it was still so impactful. And it wasn't just impactful, say, for Canadians or people from Montreal, it was impactful on a global scale.
Now, speaking of helmets, I actually just thought about like which drivers have dedicated helmets to Jill and other drivers in general, which I'd love to see. Y'all know I'm a sucker for special helmets on race weekends. But one of the ones that like really stick out is Charles. I think his was for the Canadian Grand Prix last year. Okay, Edo's telling me yes, that was the one. Um, Went to a little bit controversy about some speculation that he didn't receive any family approval and everything from Jill's son. And, looking back, his son does have a right to feel the way he does. But I mean, again, it's your dad. Like, of course, you want some knowledge. I don't want to say, but some knowledge of what's going on if someone's going to, like, dedicate a helmet to him. But of course, it came out that later on, his actual family were like, no, it's okay. Like, you can go ahead and wear it. Because, like, being Charles was, like, respectful and didn't wear it for, like, the practice sessions or anything. I think it was until, like, quali and, like, the actual race he wore it. And usually you wear it for, like, the whole weekend. So, love that. But, yeah, I just remember seeing that. And I was just like, I remember that happened to Charles.
Yeah, I mean, who could forget that, dare I say, incident? It was actually so when they did the whole announcement of the special helmet, they did it, I think it was like on the Wednesday or Thursday before like the actual like practice session started. And according to his son, Jacques Villeneuve, um, they shouldn't have put any sponsored logos on the helmet in order to truly honor Gilles' legacy, because oftentimes, especially old school Formula One, you didn't really put logos on the helmets themselves. That is a rather recent development. And while I get what he was trying to get at with the whole please be pure in honoring his legacy and stuff, you have to take things into context. Like, yes, maybe while your dad raced, it was a thing to not have sponsors on the helmet, but that's not a thing now. Sponsors pay to be on those helmets. So I kind of found it, dare I say, funny that he came out and said that. But I'm just glad that after I think like the Friday, Gilles' sister actually showed up at the track and said everything was fine. Like she and Charles shook hands and everything. Like it was a whole sweet thing between the two. And I also appreciated that Charles was just like, I mean, no disrespect and everything else. Like, he was very humble and apologetic about it. But at the same time, it's a helmet, it's a tribute. Let them have the tribute.
But I agree with you, Edo. I feel like the whole sponsorship on the helmet thing and all that is just like out of anyone's control, especially the drivers themselves. Like, if it's in good intent and everything, like, why not? Wouldn't you want their legacy and their memory to like move on and like, for like the new fans and everything to like learn about, like give them a reason to like look up the driver and learn about and become more of a knowledgeable fan, for lack of a better word, because I mean there's so much to learn about the sport itself. But I mean, I like the helmet. I mean, it was really really nice. But I'm kind of hoping to see like more dedicating helmets. If Lance hadn't done one yet, I would hope that he would do one, as he is currently the only Canadian driver. So it's like kind of like, why not do one?
And also, I mean, they're both French Canadian, so come on. Come on. It's kind of on the nose, if you will. But what's interesting to me with Gilles as well is that not just like helmet tributes, but also like younger drivers that I mean weren't around or and stuff talking about him. Like whenever you say here, especially like Charles or even like sometimes Pierre or Esteban talk about Gilles and the like his legacy and what impact that legacy had on them, like hearing the stories is just so heartwarming. And I hope, I sincerely hope that this keeps going because, and also, I hope that we this way get more North Americans into the sport. I say North Americans because would I love, say, more Canadians in sport? Sure. But even North Americans that could in some way honor Gilles' legacy would be amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I think it'd be cool. Or even if our, boy Logan would do something. Just a thought, Logan. Be cool. I don't know. I just like when they do special stuff like that because it's like the thought they put into it, as well as like the concept of having like their style incorporated into like their modernized style and everything like that. But I remember reading something about like his number 27, how I don't think anyone in F1 has used it since his passing. Okay, again is telling me no one has either. Thank you. But you've seen it like used in other sports, like in IndyCar.
Wait, I think One of the Haas boys is currently using it.
You know
Let
what?
me
You're
double
right. I think
check.
Nico is too. You're
Nico.
right.
Yeah, because they're 20 and 27.
Yes, that's what
Maybe
it is.
rephrase.
I'm pretty sure, yeah, because I remember looking at it when he had his little special German helmet for the Euros, which ended today, which I'm kind of sad about. Anyways, but they still use like the number besides Nico in F1. They have it like an IndyCar and a NASCAR, so I thought that was kind of cool because it's like I think like Indy and maybe NASCAR too have like different ways how they pick the numbers, as opposed to F1 where you can choose a one and you have the privilege of being number one if you won the championship, a la Max Verstappen. Um, but it makes me wonder, like, is there any like circumstances, like, for example, Jill or like people like Senna or Nikki Lauda, etc., huh, where like they retire the number like they do for some other sports? I think that'd be pretty cool if they don't do that already. Kind of just like a Hall of Fame of F1 of sorts.
It's funny that you mentioned retired numbers because as soon as you brought up the number conversation, I thought of Jules Bianchi and his number 17, which they did retire. Because, so for those of you who don't know, F1 went through a few like numbering convention rule changes and how it was done over time. But basically, pre 2014, each team more or less were assigned one or two numbers, and then the drivers just got the pick. And then for a while, there was also, depending on where in the standings you finished the year before, that's that was your number for the year. So like world champion was one, etc. And fun fact, with that system, that was the system right before 2014. If the world champion retired, whoever took over his car, so to speak, would start with number zero because that also happened once or twice. But anyway, 2014 hits, and drivers rather, could start choosing their own number between 2 and 99 because one was always reserved for the current world champion if they wanted it, which Max does currently, and Seb did what the 1 year where he was the reigning world champion when the new numbering system came into play. But as Mel mentioned, one of the houseboys is currently using the number 27. So while I would love to see them retire it in honor of Gilles, I don't think they will because they haven't done yet. But it would be a nice gesture. It definitely would.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool, but I mean, if they haven't done it for like the other drivers, except of course for Jules' number, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it had to be like a really. I mean, Jill's accent, it was really bad. I don't know. I just think they should just to like honor him and everything. But I mean, the FIA and F1 world will do what they want when they want, as we've seen it in the past. But I just started to wonder, like after the accident, like what kind of safety measures they took, just given the fact that I mean, I feel like after a big accident like that happens, there's always like some sort of like regulation or safety measures that they take into like the next following seasons and whatnot. So I would have to dive deeper into that a bit more to like explore. But I find it always interesting because it's always just like something bad has to happen in order for something to be changed or taken out or improved, just for the safety of other drivers. Which, yeah, of course, I mean that is the point. But it's like, why do lives have to be lost in order for that to happen? But that's just me because I'm like, everyone should be safe. I know they're driving like these rocket ships of cars in weird shaped circles and everything, but at the same time I'm like, I just want everyone to be safe and just finish the race as safely as possible because these accidents can get very, very scary in like a blink of an eye, pretty much.
Agreed. But at the same time, I feel like F1 is like they live and they learn, like they, or not live, but You get what I'm saying. They learn from their mistakes, let's put it that way. And at least they're doing that oftentimes. I mean, like, for example, we had Jules Bianchi's accident in 2014. Prior to that, it was 20 years where we had a fatality with Senna and Ratzenberger at the San Marino GP in 94. And I think prior to that, off the top of my head, it was, I think there was someone in the 80s, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, honestly, I mean, obviously there was Gilles in the 80s, but other than him, I don't think there was anyone in the 80s, but I might be wrong. So at least they're getting less and less. But as you said, Mel, they're driving at insane speed in weird shapes. And the cars are only going to get faster and they're making them lighter again and everything else. So I feel like, I mean, they don't want crashes to happen, so to speak, but near crashes, I feel like, is what makes it exciting and stuff like that, because overtaking is always risky and that leads to maybe near crashes and stuff like that. So it is somewhat exciting, even if it is scary.
Yeah, I agree because I'm probably not the only one, and I know probably my PGP besties can relate. Whenever they're about to overtake, whether it be on a straight or in a turn, I literally hold my breath whenever I see like the tires or like the wings or whatever like get literally like millimeters away from each, or when they get close to a wall. I just, it's always a hold a breath with maybe a scream. I'm like, oh my god. But I was looking up like some quick little like things about Jills, and he's also in the Snowmobile Hall of Fame, which I love. Again, I think that's actually like pretty cool. I'm about to like look it up and see where I can go because I don't like the cold, y'all. But seeing something like that in the snow, I think is pretty badass. I feel like it'd be a lot of fun to win or to watch and be there and just be like, hey, yeah, I went to a snowmobile race. Like something different. I don't know. I thought that was actually kind of cool that he's part of that Hall of Fame, not only in like the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame, but also the Canadian Motorsport Hall of Fame. Two different Hall of Fames, y'all. And to close out the episode, we have a quote for you from, of course, from Gilles Villeneuve. To drive fast, you have to risk your life. No question about it. Risk tolerance is the key. And to be honest, I agree. I can see how that comes into play in general. Now, I always love when we do a deep dive on a past driver or even on a current driver and see how their legacy is still seen today. Let us know who you'd like to hear about next time. Everywhere our socials are Paddock Girls Podcast, except as you know, on Twitter/X, we're Paddock Girls Pod. Thanks for joining us in the paddock and see you